You must have seen multiple YouTube videos on text animations in After Effects. But have you ever wondered what you could do if you could understand how to actually animate text in After Effects? So in this video, we're going to do exactly that. We'll probably see a few examples along the video. So let's get started. So first up, let's adjust the size of this text and put it up here. And when we're going through all of these features, we can see very light lines in between them, grouping them separately. So what we are going to do is basically use one group at a time from Animate button, and then we'll add rest of them from Add button. And what I mean by that is something you'll understand if you watch the video throughout. So let's first add the enable per character 3D, which is exactly same as clicking here to enable the 3 dimensions of that specific text, and then we can manipulate them. And what it basically does is it puts our text in 3D, 3-dimensional plane, and we can do multiple fun stuff with it. So for example, the first thing we can do is something similar to this. You saw how the text came in front. You can't just do that without enabling it. So what we are going to do is do kind of a similar thing, the same thing, and understand how it actually works. So for this animation, I'm not going to do a lot since you already know how to animate the images. You can do the exact same thing that you do in Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, and After Effects. It's just that you have to approach things a little differently, which is by clicking P. So you click P and it shows XYZ positions. You create keyframes and you have this ready. Just going to drag and drop it here. So we have those animations. Let's just quickly go through how it looks. Well, it doesn't look that good because before starting this video, I turned on this Cinema 4D option, which wasn't the right thing to do. I'm going to switch it back to Classic 3D. We'll go back to Cinema 4D for the next animation that we're going to do, but wait. For now, let's just play with the Classic 3D. Now, what we're going to do is click on YouTubers and click on P. Now, to make things more clear, what we're going to do is just make this preview bigger. Instead of one view, we're going to make 2 views. The first one will be the front. The second one, it will be the top. Now you know where this specific text is. What we have to do is bring it a little back. It's done. Now let's check where these things are. Are these? Okay, they are back here. So what we're going to do is take this text behind the image layers and we'll just leave it there for now. And we will start creating the keyframes. Now, the first keyframe that I'm going to use is bringing the text forward. Now, how we can do that is clicking on Z position. Now, let's go a few frames after the last image pops in, and then what we are going to do is bring it forward. Okay, now 2 images, and then the last one pops in, and then slowly a last text comes forward. Let's go through it again. And you can see when the third image pops in, the text does start to come forward in the right preview that you can see, which is the top preview. But you can't really figure that out in the front one. Now, how you can fix that is by adding a little bit of sauce. Let's go and add fast box blur. And what we're going to do is make the text a little blurry. And we'll just keyframe it. Here it goes like this, and when they pop in, the text gets a little blurry. Let's just put it at 13 for now. So it looks that it's behind those two images. And then when it's popping back in, we'll do kind of the same thing, but when it will come forward, it will get its clarity back. Now, another keyframe, and then right after that, 0. Yep. And the one thing that I've missed is from comp 1 that it changes into businessman, and that is something that you can do by going in the text settings of our text layer and then clicking on source text and then changing it. Now let's just put it businessman, and voila, there you go. Animation. What we'll need is Cinema 4D. This is the second animation that needs Cinema 4D. For this animation, what we're going to do is go in the geometry options and increase the extrusion depth, which is the thickness of that specific text. Now, let me show you how it works. The left side one is the front view, the right side one is the top view, which you already know. When I increase the extrusion depth, it increases the thickness of the text. Now, for the animation that I want to show you, what we have to do is click on that text layer and create a shape from it. And when the shape's ready, what we're going to do is go inside the contents and click on every specific letter and add, and then click on side, and then we'll add color to it. Now what that will do is add color to the sides of that specific shape, which was a text earlier, obviously. Now I'm just going to quickly change the colors, and let's just go with this. Now we've got 3 letters that are red, but the animation that we want to do needs a little more flexibility, and we can't just do the animation on this layer. What we need is 3 different layers, separate layers of T, O and G of the specific letters. Now for that, I have this specific plugin that's called Explode Shape Layers, that you can get it on script plugins. You can also get the flow one that I'm going to use it later in this video. Let's just quickly click on the Explode Layers, and we got this 3 separate layers for the letters. What we're going to do is select all of them and click R on the keyboard. Let's just go here and then click on the first keyframe, click on the clock, and then go back to 0. Now what we're going to do is change the timings of those animations, brought them a little forward so it looks, and the final sauce is basically playing with the animation. And I'm just going to select the keyframes, click on ease and apply. So that's done, the O done, and then there is G, which is also done. What I'm going to do is go back to the animate option, and for this one I'm not going to select one by one, since all transform properties includes anchor point, position, scale, skew, rotation and opacity. So it's much more comfortable to use all transform properties rather than to go to all the perimeters. Now all of them play a specific role which you already know, but what we are going to do here is understand the range selector. Now for example, what I'm going to do is bring the position of this specific text down and decrease the opacity. Now 27 in position and opacity, which is now 0, is supposed to go back to default to what the text we have created. Now how can we do that? The easiest way to do that is this. Click on start and bring them back. Click on clock, sorry. So for the animation, we can obviously go to position and click on opacity clock, and then we just make them go back to how they were, but it will look very static, which is, let me show you. Let's just click on position, and few frames later it goes back to its normal settings and goes to 100. It's back. Well, the entire text is back. But what we wanted was is range selector, is to play with range selector. Now what this does is to bring one letter at once. Let's see. Let's go back to 27 and opacity 0, and let's play with the start. You see how it comes? Well, that's what range selector does. We can play with this. But there's something else that we can do. For selector, instead of going range, we can also click on wiggly. Now what wiggly selector does is help us play with it. Now we can go back to range selector, and then it just messed up the entire settings, right? Now let's talk about these three ones. I'm trying to go through them one by one, but I'll show you what I meant. But for this one, I'm just trying to go one by one, and you'll understand why. For fill color, I'm just going to go RGB for now. Now what this does is quite similar to what we did back in the transform properties, in the transform animation, by adding the range selector. Now just click on the fill option. It does the same thing. So if we go with the fill color animation and change it to something white, I guess. So what it will do is change the animation. But instead of going to fill color, we change it to red. What range selector will do is, but letter by letter. So it's the same thing. Now let's talk about the second one, which is stroke color. For the stroke color, what I'm going to do is add the stroke. Since we don't have the stroke, if we've clicked, okay. This section, if this tick is unticked, well, this might not work, and you will be trying to figure out what this specific animation is for. Since it's called stroke color, we have to enable the stroke in the text. And what I'll do here is go to the stroke color and change the color to yellow and increase the stroke here. It will do the exact same thing again, which is go one by one. Now, what I'm going to do here is remove this animator and then add stroke width. And for stroke width, we're going to keep this on, but what we are going to do is bring the stroke down to 0 and play with the stroke width in the animation. You increase the width and then slowly fades away. But for all these animations, the stroke width one or the stroke color one or the fill color one, what you can do is add fastbox blur, and it will just elevate the animation to a whole different level. Let me show you what I mean by that. Let's just quickly add fastbox blur for this, and let's just quickly see the animation that I want to show you. Let's do this and bring the blur radius up. It's up to 9, and I'm just going to click on the clock button here and then start here, and then after a few frames just start back to 100 and this one goes to 0. Now let's see. See, it just makes things a little see, it just makes everything a little better. And this kind of text animation basically does a lot better if you put it in the documentaries. A little bit of wiggle with it, a little bit of blur, and a little bit of position animation. Voila, chef's kiss, perfection, magician, magic. That's it. That's all the English I know. Anyways, let's talk about the rest of them. The rest are tracking, line anchor, and line spacing. For this, we are going to add all the three in one text all together. Let me show you. First, I'm going to add tracking, okay? And I'm not going to remove this until I show you all three of them. And let's just increase the tracking amount here. Remove the fastbox blur, which I forgot to remove, and it does this one by one. Now let's add the line anchor. Now what this does, the 50%, the line anchor is on 50%, which is in the middle of 1 and 100. And what that does is keeps the animation's anchor in the middle. Let's see. For 50%, what it does is this. Perfect. Let's increase it to 87. Let's just put 80. Now what does that do? There's a little bit of difference. Let's just go back. Let's just go 10. What did that do? Let's just add line spacing. Now let's understand from here. Now what did that do? What it did is change the anchor of the text. And by that I mean is if it's on 10, it will go on the right because the anchor is on the middle and the text moved. Now the text will go according to the anchor. Anchor is what it actually is. It's the job of the anchor to be the middle part of entire animation. If you move the anchor point to a different place and change the rotation and mess with the rotation, it will go according to the anchor. And it does the exact same with every other animation. So, same. So, if I decrease the line anchor, it will go on the right. If I increase the line anchor, the text will go on the left. Now what we have to do is add the last one, which is line spacing in that specific column. And line spacing is something that needs more than just those three words to understand what it actually does. So what I'm going to do is remove line anchor and decrease the tracking amount to 0. And then what I'm going to do is Control A, C, and then add a few more of this, and then go below, add a few more, give it some space. Now, as you can see, there's decent amount of space on all those 6 words. But when I play with the line spacings, it messes with that. These two are X and Y animations. Those two are X and Y positions of this animation, and we bring back to 0, it will go back to default. But if I mess with them a little and play with the start, but also add a little bit of opacity, what it will do is give it more sauce. Opacity will do the sauce bit, but just to make the animation make more sense, I added the opacity. And people don't really use this often, and nor do I, so it's not really worth going in depth in this one. So let's just go with something else, the next animations. And before that, let's just remove the line and let's just keep these 3, and let's play with the character offset. Now what this does is something you've seen a lot of times in movies or in YouTube videos and certain documentaries that you've seen, probably in Johnny Harris videos. So let's just click on this and see what it actually does. See? You don't have to change it. You don't have to change and create different keyframes for this animation. It just does the offset. It changes the character by itself. Now you click on this and then go on the range selector. There you go, back to dog. You go back to 100, go back to 0, and then after a few frames, go back to 100. You get all those characters back in. Now, let's just add the character value. Now what character value will do is not just change the characters in A to Z letters, alphabets, it will also add commas and different stuff, hashtags or slashes. So let's just mess with it. Do I have the caps lock on? No. Oh, I'm back in the, yeah. So, yeah. What it did is this. Let's just remove the animation and then go back to 0. And then let's just increase the offset. And then you see, just goes to commas, minuses, slashes, numbers, includes everything. So you can mess this with these things and then start and do this animation and play with this animation. Now these were the things that were very important, but the last one is basically blur, and I'm not going to go back up there in animation and then add blur. It will look better if I add blur right here, and I'm just going to add blur here and then increase it a little. I'll just do 10 because this blur is a lot different than fastbox blur. The fastbox blur is quite subtle, quite cleaner and more real instead of this blur. So I'd rather suggest you go for the fastbox blur instead of this blur. But for this specific video, to understand what this blur does is, I've just added the blur for this video, And then let's just go back and see. The blur is there, and it's also kind of showing you subtly how all the texts are switching, until it comes to the final one. And that is it for this video. So if you liked watching this video and enjoyed it, got any sort of help, please click like, and yeah, give me some new YouTube video ideas, and I'll just GG's. Bye bye.